And we're on the air. This is the Science Island, the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. And today we're going to be talking about, strangely enough, science. Joining me are, from way over in Finland, Jani. Jani in dark, midnight Finland. Early in the morning Finland. Also joining us is Patrick. Patrick, and he's just back from his trip in way over to Bhutan.
Indeed.
Is that country as happy and friendly as the brochure say?
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's good to know. Great place to visit.
Yep.
Maybe do you have any pictures you can share towards the end of our broadcast?
None on this computer yet.
Okay.
On my laptop.
We'll wait for the vacation slideshow next week.
Yeah.
Was Bhutan a vacation, or
I edited them down. I shot 4,000 photos, so it's going to take me a little while to edit them down.
4,000 photos.
I've narrowed it down to 2,600.
Holy mackerel. Now I know where you're tired. Not from
Bhutan,
work, it's from going through all those photos.
is that strictly a vacation destination?
What? Bhutan?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody can settle there. You can go for vacation and you can go for volunteering, but you can't go there to live.
No immigration.
I was thinking NASA sent you there for something. Who knows?
Oh, no.
How's the bandwidth?
Kazakhstan or Kazakhstan.
I would think about Science Island there, but what's the bandwidth like?
Horrible.
I'll cross it off the
They
list.
have 3G cell service everywhere. Like on top of the mountaintops, they have 3G cell service, but they don't have great internet. Well, the hotels didn't have great internet. I can't vouch for private residents.
I think if you want good internet, don't we got to move to Europe because that's where the best is?
No, you have to move to Austin or Kansas City or Provo, Utah.
Oh, so that's the best in the world because Europeans come over here and hate our internet connect speeds.
You know, if you have to, I mean, I pay.
It's probably the best in the world.
Yeah.
Or a university is probably any university probably has a 10 gigabit trunk or bigger. Because most universities have supercomputers, and those require fat pipes. So
I did a speed. I pay $67 a month for high-speed internet, and I'm paying extra for what's called Boost. Now I get 102 MIPS down and 11.78 up. Tested it a couple hours ago.
that's actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get, but you got to pay for it.
I mean, I pay $50 for 20 down and 1.5 up.
Wow. Wow. Holy mackerel. That's not good. You're paying an awful lot for very poor bandwidth. Wow.
AT&T, and it sucks. It's the only provider I can get at my apartment, which is the main reason I want to move.
Well, that's this whole business way. I mean, they have territories carved out, so there's no real competition.
Yeah, I should try and see if I can. I mean, that was a year ago. I don't know if they've expanded. And if anyone else has expanded, I'd have to look into it again. But I'm pretty sure I'm still stuck with AT&T.
Well, also joining us is Ulysses. How you doing, Ulysses?
Doing good.
You're glowing in the dark, it looks like, from your glasses. And I know you're in a nuclear power plant, so I don't know.
Working in a nuke, so that might happen.
Oh, well, let's start talking about some science. We've got a couple of space stories, talking about the sun's solar sibling, talking about MAVEN, and talking about NASA's plans to retrieve a sample from Mars. We got a really interesting story about mice being helped, mice that had multiple sclerosis-like condition and being practically cured when injected with this human stem cell treatment. Have another story about a drug that can help people undergoing radiation therapy. We got ourselves an ultra-fast robotic arm. Can catch baseballs, can catch hockey pucks on the fly. We got a story about how dopamine turns worker ants into warrior queens. And we got a couple of environmental stories and an educational story. So let us start with the first one about the sun's solar sibling. And this is from the University of Texas at Austin. And a team of researchers led by Ivan Ramirez of the University of Texas at Austin has identified the first sibling of the sun, a star almost certainly born from the same cloud of gas and dust as our star. And let me screen share it because for anybody who is watching, there is a little diagram to show you exactly where this star happens to be. It's HD 162826, just up from Vega. Ramirez's methods will help astronomers find other solar siblings, which could lead to an understanding of how and where our own sun formed and how our solar system became habitable. We want to know where we were born. We can figure it out in what part of the galaxy the sun formed. We can constrain conditions on the early solar system that could help us understand why we are here. Now he says there's a small but not zero chance that these solar siblings could host planets that harbor life. Now, right off the bat, when it comes to knowing how many stars or planets could host life, we don't have a clue. So I don't see how we can say it's smaller but not zero because we don't have a clue. We know there's one. There could be a bazillion. There could be 42. In any event, the solar sibling his team identified is called HD 162826, a star 15% more massive than the Sun, located 110 light years away in the constellation Hercules, not visible to the aided eye, but can easily be seen with low-power binoculars. And the team identified this particular sun as our siblings by following up on 30 possible candidates found by other research groups. But several factors are needed to pin down a solar sibling. In addition to chemical analysis, his team also included information about the stars' orbits, where they have been, and where they are going in their paths around the Milky Way. Considering both chemistry and orbits, narrowed the field of candidates down to one, HD 162826. But no one knows whether this system hosts any life-bearing planets. By lucky coincidence, he says, the McConnell Observatory plant, and that's in Texas, search team has been observing this particular sun for 15 years, studied by a few other research groups, together with calculations by Rob Whittemer of the University of New South Wales, have ruled out any massive planets orbiting close to the star, so-called hot Jupiters, and indicate that it's unlikely that a Jupiter analog orbits the star. Finding a single solar sibling is intriguing, but Ramirez points out the project has a larger purpose: to create a roadmap for how to identify solar siblings in preparation for the flood of data expected soon from surveys such as GEA, the European Space Agency's mission to create the largest and most precise 3D map of the Milky Way. And that's as far as I'm going to go.
So, we're not likely to see it.
Not likely. I mean, I guess it's percentage of habitability. Whether or not a star could be habitable, or a planet, I should say, all we're doing it is comparing it to the Earth, if it's Earth-like. But we really have no idea how much that limits the possibility of life on other planets.
Well, it's not just life, it's intelligent life we're wanting to find out too, right?
Who cares about intelligent life?
How intelligent does it need to
about
be?
to want to come and destroy us. That's all you got to worry about.
Oh, no. See now, there you go, being all negative again, Ulysses. It's a question of us finding some place. They've probably made all the mistakes we have made, and they can tell us how to live better. They can give us technology that will help us live better.
Like to serve mankind.
To serve mankind.
Serve mankind.
It's a cookbook.
Yeah, we want you to eat healthier. Be happy. Makes the meat taste better.
A little bit back to Bhutan. Is everybody in Bhutan a vegetarian?
No.
Okay.
They follow the middle path.
How was finding food to eat over there?
I ate a lot of rice.
Wow. What else?
That's disappointing.
That's pretty much all I ate was rice.
Are you sick of rice yet?
Yeah. Yes.
We'll have to look up Bhutan cuisine.
There's
Maybe
quinoa.
next week.
Well, no, see, the tourism industry is fully regulated by the government, and so, like, everybody has, like, the same tour schedule. So I met a lot of people on the way that were on the exact same schedule as us, but in different groups. So, like, we went to one destination, and we said hi, and then we went to another destination, and we said hi again. And that happened several times with different groups. Some of them, like, were staggered a little bit off, but that being said, the menu is the same, like, every night. It's like very little variation. Almost all the meals are the same. And we were not allowed to eat at actual Bhutanese restaurants and have real Bhutanese food. You can only have what was on the... Because they don't want us to get food poisoning and die.
I mean, why Bhutan out of everywhere in the planet?
Because it's Bhutan.
Well, I mean, that's not my first thought when I was, just want to go.
It's the happiest planet. It's the happiest country on our planet.
No, the Netherlands is.
Where people are happy.
The Netherlands is the happiest place. Bhutan is the 8th happiest place. It was 9th. It went up one.
Actually, I thought I just saw a news story saying that Denmark was.
That might be true.
That does not shock me.
Let's move on to a couple of NASA. We can
Can we
start
skip a science one? And go to the northern sustained hardwood forest.
You want to jump in? You want to disrupt our agenda. That's what you want to do, Ulysses. So I don't know. I want to make sure you want to make sure you're awake.
I'm awake because like this is coming from Michigan Tech, where my grandfather used to teach.
Okay, Ulysses, just for you. We'll completely disrupt the schedule here.
We're that kind of guy. Sometime you can't have the same thing all the time.
How about Ulysses presents the story?
I could read it, but it's really a long story. They're not getting a sustainable forest like they thought they were. They have the specific way of harvesting hardwoods so they can continue to harvest hardwoods in the future. But
Yeah, it's called the silviculture system.
yes.
And it's a very, it's this precise method. I don't know when it was developed. And it's been around for centuries. And it's a strict formula to sustainably manage the trees. And it works. And as it says here, there's only one problem. Most of the current timber industry people don't use it.
Yeah, they don't know if they're not using it or not using it properly. I don't think they're from what I see down here. I don't think these timber people are using it at all. At least not down here, they're not. You go in, you see
the number they came up with was 22 out of 94.
Yeah.
22 out of 96 of these forest areas which are using this particular method, and the other are being overcut or undercut.
Well, they're questioning this method if they're using it because the quality of the wood that comes back, they're thinking they're undercutting because there's not enough sunlight to grow the new seedlings to grow more hardwood that reach the floor. So they're not certain, I don't think, at the beginning of this article, whether they're doing it properly. They can't tell if they're doing it properly, or they can't tell if they're not doing it properly. But if they're doing it properly, are they not allowing enough cut trees to get enough light to establish a new generation? Did that make any kind of sense?
They're either using it properly or they're not using it properly. I think that's basically the two choices.
Yes.
And what I got from it was basically when they looked at these 26 other, and I presume this is corporate forest, they found that, and I think some of this could be national parks as well, 22 out of 96 instances, they weren't really following this particular century-old silviculture system. And it's sustainable. That's the main thing. It is sustainable. And my guess would be that, particularly with maybe lumber companies, may be using the same methods they've been using for years, for centuries perhaps. Guys may be using the same techniques that his father and his grandfather used, and or they, maybe they just don't care. I don't know.
He's here saying we need to understand why Algebraice isn't being followed, even though people think it is, and we need to realize the economic and economic consequences if not followed by a selective silviculture system. So I think they need to educate people more is what they recommend, and have more public accountability, which won't happen. So I think I'm going to sound like a hippie head here, but I think we ought to really think about converting crops and growing marijuana and using the pot plants to make paper, because it's way more efficient. You make more, it grows in a year. You have a crop out, and you would save hardwood forest and thus lowering prices of building material and creating another economic boom. And you've heard that first here on this Science Island.
Why are we using hardwoods to make paper?
They do use hardwood. They mix it up. It depends on what type of paper you want to make. They use hardwoods in this paper mill in Covington. They make food grade paper that's thicker and stronger and coated, and they also use it for cigarette boxes.
I was thinking hardwood was used mostly for lumber.
Mostly for furniture. They use a lot of pine for lumber for housing. because it grows fast and it's cheaper, but you still use it for paper, and they use hardwood for paper too. But if you think of how many millions of trees you would spare every day if we went to a hemp society instead of a paper to make our paper instead of a hardwood. I mean, you heard it here first, people.
Now that using it for paper, that I could see. I don't know enough about the process to say would it be better or worse, but you know, it's you made a good case there, Ulysses.
No, he didn't. He didn't make any case at all. He just randomly said things.
Come on, Patrick. Let's be.
I want to see your data, sir.
I read a thing and I got to go search for it, but I'll find it and I'll post it.
All right.
But I've read that I read somewhere that it's more efficient to use. You know, it's just economically it's better to use hemp because you can grow it fast and you don't have to destroy forest to make it.
Well, the main point I got is that keyword sustainability, and that's probably that when you talk about education.
Mm-hmm.
If more corporations, more people were taught about how efficient a sustainable system is, if you could have a forest and you use techniques that make that area of the forest that you're harvesting, if you'd make that sustainable, that's in your own best interest. So, you know, it is an education process, and I suspect with at least some corporations, they don't even think about it. Oh, we got this forest, we cut down these trees, what's the problem? The problem, sooner or later, you're going to run a forest. Oh, well.
Yeah, I'm finding stuff now.
Let us go back to
to
NASA
now.
and our friend MAVEN. I'll screen share it because you got a little picture of MAVEN. That's a picture of the MAVEN Solar Wind Analyzer, and it was launched in November. Mission to understand how and why the planet has been losing its atmosphere over billions of years. This is Martian atmosphere we're talking about. By studying ions or small electronically charged particles in and above the red planet's tenuous atmosphere, the Solar Wind Analyzer will help answer why Mars has gradually lost much of its atmosphere, developing into a frozen, barren planet, at least on the surface. Once the MAVEN spacecraft is orbiting Mars, the Solar Wind Ion Analyzer, SWA, which was designed and built at the University of California, will spend much of its time measuring the ions in the solar wind. Released continuously from the Sun's atmosphere, the solar wind travels toward Mars at speeds around 1 million miles per hour, carrying with it a magnetic field that originates inside the Sun. It is composed of charged particles that interact with natural gas particles in Mars's upper atmosphere, giving them the ability to escape from Mars's gravitational pull. Scientists think that the interaction between solar wind ions and Mars's atmospheric particles are the key factor allowing the particles to escape, a process that gradually strips the planet of its atmosphere and has been doing so for billions of years. Now, my thing I wonder is, does that mean at one point Mars had an atmosphere close enough to that of Earth to have greatly increased the possibility of Earth-like life developing on Mars? And two, how many years it would take, how many years it did take for that atmosphere to be lost to the point where Earth-like life couldn't exist on the planet's surface? Well, hope maybe this MAVEN will provide some of the answers. This MAVEN will specifically be measuring the solar wind speed and density, two critical factors that determine how its ions interact with the planet's atmospheric particles. And Halkes said that although the solar wind itself isn't packed with ions, its blazing speed, that a huge number of ions are hitting the Martian atmosphere and interacting with the atmosphere's particles. By measuring the solar wind's density and velocity, could help determine whether gusts of denser, faster solar wind contribute to greater atmospheric loss. This information will be used to estimate losses in the past. Once they hit the planet's atmosphere, the solar wind's ions play several critical roles in aiding particles to escape, which we have already talked about. Both ions and electrons could start the process of particle escape by transforming the atmosphere's neutral particles into charged particles. This can occur through a process called charge exchange and impact ionization. Ultraviolet sunlight also transforms many atmospheric particles into ions. Once the atmospheric particles become charged, they can interact with the solar wind's magnetic field and be accelerated and carried away from the planet. Ions that have been removed like this, they're called pickup ions. The ionization step is critical since the original neutral particles don't respond to the solar wind magnetic field, and generally have too little energy to escape. Ionized gases in the solar wind, known as plasmas, can interact with the wind's magnetic field to form an electronic field and accelerate the newly charged particles in the atmosphere with enough energy for them to escape. With both the electrons and the ions, while both the electrons and ions form the plasma, Halkes said the ions are in some ways more important thanks to their larger mass. And I will stop there.
What do you think, Jani?
Sounds good.
Okay. Moving on.
Well, man, nobody? Anybody?
Patrick's ready. He's really, he had to work after traveling through Baton.
Oh, man.
On this one.
Let's go on. This actually, well, that's an important question. When did Mars lose its atmosphere? How did Mars lose its atmosphere? Exactly over what period of time did it lose its atmosphere? That's certainly important information.
Yep. It is to know if we have to settle it.
And another thing we want to know about Mars, we want to do with Mars, is to collect a sample and bring it back.
And bring it back. Do we have to bring it back?
Yes.
That's the important part of this whole...
What if you bring back stuff that's no good?
Yeah, we got a little diagram here. That's on the screen.
There's no such thing as a sample that's no good from another planet.
It's the only one that brings back... What is that movie? Andromeda.
What is that movie?
The Andromeda Strain. It's only bad if it doesn't bring back the Andromeda Strain.
Well, useful and interesting is different from good or bad. Could be bad.
Could be
There we
bad.
are. Uh-oh. Any event, here's a little diagram. Beautiful little diagram for our friends at NASA. And, oh my God. Somebody's already got some aliens attacking them, I think. I don't know.
Milestone.
So, here's our wonderful diagram that shows us how it's going to escape from Earth.
Scroll
the
down.
vehicle, huh?
Scroll down.
Okay, scroll down. Where?
No. Just a little bit.
Oh, I see.
There. Perfect.
Okay, sorry. There's a picture of our, what is it? Curiosity, Mars Curiosity rover?
No.
I should have.
They're just using a silhouette of Curiosity to be easier.
They're gonna make something that'll bring it.
There's a diagram. I'm going to go on to the story.
Sample fetching mission.
NASA's Curiosity rover is in the prime of its life, exploring rocks, soil, and air of Mars, but the agency is already planning its successor. We know that. Okay. Planetary geologists will gather in a hotel near Arlington, Virginia, to begin hammering out how they're going to do it, and the launch is set for 2020. They're going to build a machine that's nearly identical to Curiosity and equip it with new instruments. And they haven't finalized their detail. The next rover will most certainly have a hugely important, unprecedented job to collect and store rocks and soil for a future spacecraft to bring it back to Earth. Now I'm less excited. It's going to get there in 2020. It's going to collect the dust, but it's going to take us a whole bunch of more time before we can actually get there and bring it back. Oh well. It will be the first ever sample returned to Mars. The next 20 years of Mars exploration hinges on where this rover goes. It has to tell us something fundamental about the border history of Mars. You're going to have this worksheet, and they're going to talk about possible landing sites. Such locations could be the Marwith Vallis, an ancient valley strewn with materials formed in the water, which would help with the rover's main goal of finding and exploring environments. The European Space Agency is also considering a site for its ExoMars rover scheduled to launch in 2018. Other possibilities for 2020 include ancient, now dry lakes and deltas. Some place called the Uberwasdel crater were among the top candidates. And that was passed over for the Gale crater, where the rover is laboriously trekking towards a 5-kilometer-high mountain of sediments. The rover will have the crucial area of collecting samples. This 2020 rover will have the job of collecting samples. They've studied meteorites that originated in Mars, but no space agency has been able to bring back samples from Mars.
Well,
you know what? Now this is just. I thought they were going to be bringing back samples in 2020, so I kind of misread the story. Why is it taking us so freaking long?
there's no money. Money changes everything.
Yeah.
And it does, because then you have to plan everything, and by the time you do get the money, you don't have anything to start with.
I mean, it's good that
I think Mars is relatively a boring planet compared to the rest of them in the solar system. It's the closest one we can get to. I'd like to see him do a Europa study or Enceladus.
Those went badly.
What we need, what should happen, and once again I'm forgetting completely about politics, but man, you get NASA, European Space Agency together. Why are they each sending a rover? Send, combine our talents.
Well,
These two agencies, we can get it there faster.
Then you got two different people wanting to fight over two different things on the same.
Yeah.
On the same thing, on the same spacecraft.
Politics.
Politics.
Oh, well.
It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, if you were president, what would you do with asteroids? He goes, well, for one thing, I could be in charge, but it doesn't mean I could do anything. So it'd have to be a dictator in order for anything to happen, because you could be, everybody knows that you could be the president and get nothing accomplished.
You are correct. In a dictatorship, this would not be a problem.
You would not have
Just
a
got
problem.
to get the dictator to agree to the right agenda.
He thinks if we can gather up our metallic asteroids in their Earth orbit, we can start making money off of them. That will jumpstart space exploration.
Well, the Obama administration changed the focus. Was it the Bush administration wanted to go primarily towards the moon, I think? Talk about possibly mining the moon. And the Obama administration changed the focus to an asteroid.
You say Obama. It's like Alabama. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Just double check.
Yeah, our president. Our
President.
dearly beloved president. Yeah, boy. Biggest disappointment. One of the biggest disappointments and among all the people that I've voted for.
Given the Congress he's had to work with, nothing will ever get accomplished.
He had a couple of years. He could have done much more. But we're talking about politics. Let's jump to something exciting. And this is talking about mice using human stem cell treatment with mice who have a multiple sclerosis-like condition, and this particular treatment basically cured them. Or didn't cure them necessarily, but they could do things like walk again.
Mice are the most cured animals on the planet.
Lab mice.
Lab mice, that is.
Mice severely disabled by a condition similar to multiple sclerosis could walk less than 2 weeks following treatment with human stem cells. When the scientists transplanted human stem cells into the MS mice, they expected no benefit from the treatment. They thought the cells would be rejected, just like rejection of an organ transplant. Instead, the experiment yielded spectacular results. And this is the most exciting part of this particular study to me, is how you try something. You don't know what you're going to get, and you get something very, very exciting, or you do an experiment expecting to get one thing, and you get something completely different. The serendipitous nature of experimentation. His fellow postdoctoral fellow, who's a girl, Dr. Liu Chin, never mind. Anyway, Dr. Liu Chin came to me and said, the mice are walking, the mice are walking. I didn't believe her, said Tom Lane. He's a professor at pathology at the University of Utah. Within a short period of time, 10 to 14 days, the mice could walk and run, and 6 months later, they showed no signs of slowing down. 10 to 14 days, and these mice were up and running around. The results opens up a whole new field of research for us to figure out why it worked. More than 2.3 million people have MS, a disease in which the immune system attacks myelin, an insulation layer surrounding nerve fibers. The resulting damage inhibits transmission of nerve impulses, producing a wide variety of symptoms, including difficulty with walking, impaired vision, fatigue, and pain. Current FDA drugs slow early forms of the disease by dampening attacks on the immune system. In recent years, scientists have turned their attention to searching for ways to halt or reverse MS. Results from the study demonstrate the mice experiment at least partially reversal of symptoms, immune attacks are blunted, and the damaged myelin is repaired. Where we made the neural system turns out to be important. Prior to transplantation, Loring's graduate student and co-first author Ronald Coleman thought it was intuition. There we go, intuition, and grew the cells so they were less crowded on the petri dish than usual. The change in protocol yielded a human neural stem cell type that turned out to be extremely potent. The experiments have since been successfully repeated with cells produced under the same conditions by different laboratories. Counterintuitively, the scientists originally predicted that the stem cells would be rejected by the mice, and that seemed to be true. As early as 1 week post-treatment, there were no signs of transplanted stem cells in the mice. What would ordinarily be considered a handicap turns out to be a significant advantage. The human neural stem cells send chemical signals that instructs the mouse's own cells to repair the damage by MS. Experiments by Lynn's team suggest that TGF-beta proteins comprise one type of signal, but others are likely. This realization has important implications for translating the work to clinical trials in the study. Rather than having to graft stem cells into a patient, which can be challenging from a medical standpoint, we might be able to develop a drug that can be used to deliver the therapy much more easily. So you're not relying on the stem cells themselves. What's happening is these stem cells are sending chemical signals that instruct the mouse's own stem cells, to repair the damage.
I think it's interesting. I guess they're going to, when they send it to clinical trials, they're going to do peer testing. I mean, damn, that's amazing.
It is amazing. And again, what I liked about it is that this was an unexpected results. And that's why when you're talking about funding science, why should we fund a particular science program? And politicians and others, they want to look for the economic justification for doing it. They want you to say, okay, you give me a bunch of money, and this is what I'll do for you. With so much of science, you don't know.
Turn it over to Bayer or Monsanto, and they'll develop some sort of medicine for it.
Yeah, that's what we do. But and same thing. I'm getting back to NASA, where politicians will say, okay, exactly what are you going to do with this money? What are you going to give us?
We don't.
NASA says, well, look what we've done in the past. I don't know specifically how you're going to use what we develop, but it's going to lead to some amazing new technology.
You say politicians like it's both sides, but it's really coming from the conservatives. They're the ones on the science committee said, well, we won't give you money until you tell us what are you going to develop with it? I mean, and nobody knows, but it's really the conservative side of the political spectrum. That's why Obama can't get anything done, is because there's no compromise with them. The Tea Party has taken over. This is something that Eisenhower has warned us about, that narrow-minded people will be trying to destroy your government because they just can't. So, I don't know. But anyway, that's political chat for me.
You haven't sold me, I'm sorry.
I haven't sold you?
No, I don't see where NASA's budget has been quadrupled by the Obama administration.
No, it hasn't, but, you know,
Little bitty increase.
being that we had this thing called the sequester, wasn't completely one side or the other, was it now?
Well, let's plow on. Let's go on to another exciting story about drugs that treats damage to the gut and can help people undergoing radiation treatment. Ah, come on. Let's try that again. There we go. It's a cure for wanted a cure for fatal effects of radiation. And they say a drug that treats damage to the gut could help people undergoing radiation therapy for cancer or victims of a terrorist attack. A protein that keeps gut cells alive could be the key to surviving acute radiation syndrome. This is mice again. Test in mice of a therapy that shores up levels of the protein in cells indicated that it limits the intestinal damage caused by exposure to radiation, such as could occur during a dirty bomb attack. The drug could also be useful for counteracting the side effects of cancer radiation therapy. Drugs are already available to treat bone marrow damage that occurs in acute radiation syndrome, but no good drugs are available to counter the fatal gastrointestinal damage that often accompanies it, which is marked by dehydration, malnutrition, and infection. All nasty stuff. And finding such a drug has been a priority. A group led by a tumor biologist, Amado Garcia, or something like that, at Stanford University, reports today that gastrointestinal radiation damage might be kept at bay through stabilization of the body's supply of a protein called hypoxia-inducible factor 2, which helps to control the survival of cells that line the inside of the gut under the low oxygen conditions found there. When the scientists gave mice a drug called dimethylxylene glycine to neutralize proteins that lower H1F2 levels, the mice were more resistant to radiation damage.
Let's just call it DMOG.
The what?
DMOG.
Okay. The scientists blasted the abdomens of 8 mice with X-rays and doused them with DMOG. 24 hours later, 6 of these mice survived at least a month, compared with only 2 out of the 12 untreated mice. However, in mice exposed to whole-body radiation, DMOG prevented death only in a handful of animals who also received bone marrow transplants. Radiation, an oncologist from Duke University, said the findings could be useful because a dirty bomb might not affect survivors' whole bodies. Civilians exposed to radiation may have part of their bone marrow shielded. For example, if, for example, they were in a building. The development of new countermeasures against terrorist threats has been difficult because the market for such drugs is small. The U.S. government is trying to tell companies to solve these problems by funding the research for treatments through many agencies. This guy does not intend to apply. The person who did the study does not intend to apply for funding to develop DMOG or other HIF2 stabilizing drugs. Instead, he hopes to study how these drugs, several of which are being studied as potential treatments for anemia, might protect healthy cells from radiation. That's it.
Well, that's good, especially for people who work in nuclear power plants.
Yeah, again, it's trying to get into the after effects of cancer treatments, or in so many cases, the treatment.
Yeah, the chemotherapy is just destructive.
Yeah, it's
Anything to help you get over the side effects.
well, hopefully this will turn into something useful. Another thing that could be useful, I'm going to talk about robots. Wake up there, Patrick. We're talking about robots. In this case, a robot that can catch objects on the fly.
This is old news.
Well, it wasn't old news to me. November. It says here that there is the video that says May 14th. Doesn't sound like old news to me, although maybe somebody else has it. I'll play the video. Maybe you'll see it. Maybe you won't. Just to start, anyway. I just want to give you an idea of how this little sucker works. There we go. Catching a tennis racket.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, I could see an application as a cybernetic arm if you've lost something in battle or do something. You want your arm to react fast.
Mm-hmm.
I would see you needing that,
Well, it's a step to improving robots.
That's not what this is, though. This has nothing to do with prosthetics.
Yes, but it could be applied to prosthetics.
Not yet.
But that's what you want. You don't want robots getting better arms than humans.
I don't know. I think you do. I mean, look at the robots. Applications for robots with this capability, I think, that could be even more important than using this for prosthetics.
The whole point of a robot is it does stuff better than humans. What the hell are you going on about, Ulysses?
Am I the only one that didn't see the Terminator series?
You didn't see it?
I did see it. Am I the only one that did see it?
Terminator series has absolutely nothing to do with reality.
I'm just saying, it could happen.
No, it couldn't.
It could happen.
It could not.
There's always a possibility.
No, there's not. There's something called physics.
Always a possibility. Well,
There's something called physics.
They don't write computer code.
Yeah, but you can't go back in time.
I'm just saying, they don't need to come back in time. Just the robots just evolve and kill us off. They don't have to come back in time to stop the army.
You hear that, Jani? You're a threat to robot kind.
Are you awake? He's just woke up. He must have been sleeping.
In any event, I'll jump ahead.
All right, jump
part
ahead.
of the story, and it says to obtain the desired speed and availability, LASA researchers were inspired by the way humans themselves learn by imitating trial and error, a technique called programming by demonstration. It does not give specific directions to the robot. Instead, It shows examples of possible trajectures. Oh my God! Sorry, apologies to the audience. We got a cranky Ulysses, and me and Patrick are falling asleep, but we'll soldier on. It consists in mainly guiding the arm to the projected target and repeating this exercise several times. The research was conducted with a ball, an empty bottle, half-filled bottle, a hammer. It caught a hammer and a tennis racket.
You got radar on it? It's got to have radar. It's got to sense.
That's a good question.
It's not radar. It's usually infrared with photogrammetry.
Okay, good deal.
Okay. When projected into the air, these items are taken will make even more complex movement. In the first learning phase,
it could use a LiDAR. Keep going.
They used cameras. Objects are thrown several times in the robot's direction through a series of cameras located around it. So you have a series of cameras located around it. The robot creates a model for the objects kinetic based on their trajectories, speeds, and rotational movement. So this is a program that these cameras are
It's actually
attached
starting
to.
to think.
Scientists translated into an equation that allows the robot to position itself very quickly in the right direction whenever an object is thrown.
It's
During
called
the
real-time triangulation.
It's
Okay.
robots think. It's trying to think.
I thought that was cool.
So did
Who
Jani.
knows? Yes, Jani's hockey team needs one of those. Okay.
So does all the Washington teams.
Yeah. Now let's go into the next story. Here we're talking about how dopamine turns worker ants into warrior queens. Xena, the warrior queen ant.
Missed that show.
And this is a type of ant. Let's see, well, I can't pronounce the name. I won't even try it. The ritualized fighting behavior of one ant species is linked to increased dopamine levels that trigger dramatic physical changes in the ant without affecting their DNA. They studied it was the Indian jumping ants, which can undergo significant changes in physiology without any related changes to their DNA. Instead, the changes depend on which genes are turned on or off, which in turn is determined by social and environmental factors.
That's pretty amazing.
Epigenetics. This is showing an example, once again, an example of how important the environment is. Everything isn't just DNA. It's the environment around us that also impacting behavior. When this ant colony's queen dies, the female workers engage in ritual fights to establish dominance. These fights can be fierce, but they rarely result in physical injury. Ultimately, a group of approximately 12 workers establish dominance and become a cadre of worker queens or gamergates. The gamergates look like ordinary workers, but undergone extreme internal changes, and this is pretty extreme. Their brains shrink by 25%. Now, I don't know if that means that you want warriors with small brains, but in this case, it works. Their ovaries expand to fill their abdomens, and their life expectancy jumps from about 6 months to several years.
Wow.
And we wanted to know what's responsible for these physical changes. The answer appears to be dopamine. We found that gamer gates have dopamine levels 2 or 3 times higher than other workers. To understand what's happening, they took a subset of workers from one colony, separated them from their gamer gates, and then put them in their own colony. These workers effectively formed their own colony and began fighting to establish dominance. When some of the workers in colony B began to get the upper hand, they were removed, and he found that these dominant ants had already begun to produce elevated levels of dopamine, more than other workers, but still less than full-fledged gamer gates. So just the act of getting involved in this ritualist fighting increases dopamine levels in the ants. They then placed these dominant workers back into colony A. The regular workers recognized the changes in the dominant workers and exhibited policing behavior.
Yeah,
so these gamer gates in colony A, they held down the dominant ants so they couldn't move, and then within 24 hours the dopamine levels in these dominant ants dropped back to normal. They were just regular worker ants again.
They're like, you gotta chill out, bro. Chill out. You're detoxing.
Tells us that the very act of winning these ritualized battles increases dopamine levels. It was pretty amazing how dopamine affects these particular ants. Reduces their brain size by 25%. Wow.
Did you say in 24 hours?
It didn't say how long it took the ants that were created. It didn't say how long this ritualized fighting took place, but before they turned into full-fledged gamer gates. But it did say that if they held down these previously dominant ants for 24 hours, the dopamine levels returned to regular worker ant levels. You need some new dopamine, maybe, Patrick.
I need to stay up later so I go to bed later and then I wake up on time. I've been waking up at like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Did you get a good night's rest, though?
Yeah.
That's important. Now, see, what you need to do is then you can go play train station, like Ulysses here.
I only do that because I want to train, but I can't afford one. So.
You're up to what, level 15?
I'm at 52.
52.
Why don't you build a model train set?
That takes money.
I didn't say buy one, I said build one.
Yeah, that takes money.
No, it doesn't.
And space.
Scrap yards. Right,
Oh,
Jani?
yeah. I thought you said model trains.
I did.
Yeah, you can get a decent locomotive for like $500.
A real locomotive?
No, a model locomotive.
What are you planning to do
They
with
sell
your Patrick? I don't know. I presume you didn't finish the your drone.
Oh, it's sitting right there on the table. I'm gonna work on it this weekend.
This weekend. Okay.
You gotta put a camera on it.
That's right.
We gotta get cameras in a claw so we can deliver packages with it.
Oh, that. It's on.
They have
things to do.
they have nice computerized trains now that have sound and digital control that I'd like to get, but like I said, they're about $400 or $500.
It's a train. It goes forward and back. You vary the voltage to it and it goes faster or slower. What else is there?
Well, it's digital now. Voltage is 100%, and you can stop it and control it and computerize it and program it.
You can do that with a regular train.
A real train, I could get a steam engine for $1 million.
Well, if you put your train in virtual space, you can pick up virtual people.
That's right.
I had a model train set when I was a kid. It's not that expensive.
No,
Grandpa had a more awesome one though.
but I want to show you. You gotta see these layouts. They're really good.
Actually, I think I still. Hey, yeah, there you go. I think my parents still have all my old train stuff. I could possibly send it to you for a small shipping fee.
Well, that's fine. What scale is it?
HO.
That'll work. Let's see. I want to show you this guy's layout. It is incredible. Of course, he spent thousands of dollars on it.
I had a friend of mine. He in his backyard built it was a toy train set that was big enough so you could actually sit on some of the trains.
Yeah.
Those are outdoor ones.
Yeah.
Those things are real cool.
All right, let's get a picture. Go into one more story about education fairly quickly, and then we can go into your hemp. We can get back on your hemp study, and then we'll let Patrick go to sleep. We can.
Poor Patrick.
All right. How to improve the educational process? How do you think we should improve it?
No lectures.
No lectures. Yes, there you go. Down with lectures. That's exactly what this particular research study says, the University of Washington. Very long article. I'm certainly not going to read the whole thing. But what it comes down to is they did a meta-study, and they looked at 25 other studies about the classroom environment for STEM areas, where you're teaching science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they compared two basic methods. One which is just a lecture, and the other is where the teacher tries to make it more interactive. And this is college. And what they found was that with the straightforward lecture technique, the failure rate was about 1/3. But using a more interactive kind of lesson plan, the failure rate drops to about 20%. So from 1/3 to 1/5. Also, it improved the grades of the students by about half a grade, which obviously can make the difference between failing and surviving, and in some cases going from that B+ to the A you may need.
It's awesome. So people just don't want to be sat there and talked to.
There are some professors that give excellent, entertaining lectures.
Yeah, that's true.
And there are others that I just want to
kill them. Take sharp objects to your skull.
I just want to wear earplugs and not attend.
Yeah, I think all of us have been put to sleep as soon as somebody starts lecturing. That's what I'm doing now. Putting Patrick to sleep. Got to be interactive. I mean, that's got to be. I don't know. It does depend on the teacher. You're right. A good teacher is the most important part of the whole educational process. But then when you look at overall an interactive classroom environment, I mean, it's got a lot more interesting.
I do agree with that. I think an interactive math class is better than just listening to the guy drone on about how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Ulysses? What kind of teachers did you have? Did you have more lecturer-type teachers, or did you have interactive-type teachers?
I mean, you all had, throughout my college, I had a lot of lecture teachers. I mean, that's all there was.
It's all lecture for the most part.
Yeah,
Unless you're in like a hands-on class, which is like shop or art or.
I mean, except for, you know, like Patrick's saying, except for our labs.
Well, this guy this professor at the University of Washington, and he has his class sizes are anywhere from 100 up to 700 students. And what he said was he has a quiz at the beginning. That's just basically to make sure that people did, you know, take the time to read the material. But he's going to make the assumption that they read the material, and he doesn't want to get involved in memorizing. He doesn't want to see how good they can memorize stuff. So what he does is he raises hypothetical situations, and then he gives them time to talk about it together, to come up with some answers, how they think they would deal with this hypothetical situation, and then he randomly calls on different students, and then they talk about it.
No, that's not bad.
So
You have to get your audience interacting with you, otherwise you're just going to put them to sleep. And you can't talk about, like, gosh, stuff that OSHA goes over is the most boring stuff in the world. I don't want to put you to sleep. I mean, I'm serious. I've had to take OSHA 30 and OSHA 10 classes before. And
that's why I don't. We have
try.
We have to take these trainings every year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you could go through the material, or you can just take the frickin' test. I just take the test, and I usually get everything right, because it's common sense stuff. It's like,
yeah,
hey, if this bottle is labeled this, what should you do with it? I mean, you gotta know what the labels mean, but, I mean, other than that, it's like, yeah.
Like try and get a job at a nuclear plant, and you're subjected to endless safety videos, and some of them require you to remember some things, like heights and stuff like that, but most of it's common sense.
Yeah.
What's your tie-off height before you have to wear a harness and shit like that? Sorry.
Well, I mean, I can think of two things. One was the military, and the other was back in my auditing job. Looking at the OSHA form you had to fill out was mind-boggling. It was like 100 pages of all kinds of ridiculous statistics, and it was just absolutely useless. Number one, it took so much time to fill out the freaking thing, and then number two, you send it back, and I guarantee you, maybe 1% of those were actually read. So it's completely time wasting. And in the military, oh my God, all the rules and regulations you have. And of course, in a battlefield zone, they get thrown away. They don't mean a thing. But that's why some soldiers actually prefer to be in a war zone instead of, because then, most of the regulations kind of go away. All right.
Yeah, you would have liked the PowerPoint. You have to sit there and take 2, maybe 3 days to go over all the regulations they want you to follow. And then you got to go through a couple of checkpoints, and each checkpoint they do a background check on it.
Couldn't they make that more like kind of an interactive video thing?
I guess.
You have to go through, maybe a paragraph or 2 paragraphs, and somebody had to come up with design the video itself. Then just hand it out, and then people would go through it, and they'd go through maybe a tutorial, and then they'd have to do something. They'd have to play a video game or something to show that they actually absorb and can use the information. They know what the heck they're doing.
Abbreviations and acronyms, and some of the abbreviations don't even match up with what they're describing. You just assign letters to them. It's just randomness, I think. Somebody's got to justify their job, but at the same time, I feel like it's a nuke. It needs to be overly done. You don't want any kind of screw-ups on it. You don't want any accidents. Everything's got to be planned.
Yeah, there's that.
And until Patrick's right, until we can get thorium.
Well, what you want to do is, you want to have some kind of an environment. Make your own little environment. And I'm going to work in a nuclear power plant with a particular job. I go in there, and then I go through different simulations. That's going to demonstrate whether I know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah, true.
Not the answers I get on a quiz.
I'm sure you have to do that if you're actually like a serious person at a nuclear plant.
The engineers draw out everything that you do to the what steps you're doing and how you're doing it. So you have this plan book when you're building something in this thing. You have to follow the steps. Anywhere else, you would just build the thing, but you have, and they have to check these steps off. Well, did you strip the outer jacket? Yes, check that off. Is it to length? Yes, check that off. I mean, they're pretty strict on everything. You can't penetrate a wall until the engineers give the say-so, until operations signed off on it, and you have to post fire watches and stuff. I mean, it's real strict stuff.
NASA's the same way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, this is just like the checklist that NASA astronauts have to do when they go through a launch.
It's not just the astronauts. I just overheard while I was working on a machine today, some part, I think it was like an antenna board or something like this, they sent to the manufacturer or whatever, and they had on there like what solder they had to use, like whether it was space certified solder or not, and the manufacturer didn't use the right solder. They used what they had on hand, so they made them rebuild it.
Yeah, I've seen that. You have to use exactly. I mean, our power companies are like that. They want a certain type of electrical tape to. And if you can't use anything else, they'll throw it out and make you do it again.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of backup and stuff, but I guess the reason why
backup, and certainly if you're talking about a nuclear power plant, you're talking about astronauts sitting on top of a rocket.
You gotta do it to spec.
There's a reason why they've got rules and you have to do things a certain way because somebody screwed it up in the past who wasn't thinking and took a shortcut and probably fucked something up. Sorry. You have to forgive my language.
This is the internet. We don't have censorship.
Self-censorship.
Oh, actually, we do. I have a friend of mine, and I don't remember if she's a Christian, but I don't know if she's a conservative Christian. In any event, she's posting pictures of her baby.
Aww.
Her nude baby.
What?
And she got a warning
What?
because she was posting pornographic pictures. Because it was a picture of her nude baby.
There was a Law and Order episode about that once. Silly.
Anyway,
Alright.
I think we can let Patrick and Jani go to bed now.
Yeah, I think we're. I'm going to bend through all the stories. If that hasn't put you asleep already, I don't know.
I'm actually awake for this one. That's odd. I usually can't stay awake.
Well, I'm here, Ulysses. Ulysses, if you want to argue about something, we can argue about something. Bees. Two bee studies we were talking about.
It's not great. I mean, it's 25% less than normal.
We did better. There were fewer die-offs, even though we're still using those nanocyanides.
1 year does not mean
die-offs went down.
1 year does not mean that. That's like saying, "Wow, it's a cold winter. That climate change really ain't happening." It was 1 year that it wasn't as bad as the rest of the year. That's all. I read this study.
Yeah, that's the first study, which was either MIT or Harvard.
Yeah.
That study showed fairly conclusively because they used 3 different controls, 3 different colonies of bees, and so they showed one colony, I think, was there were no neocyaninides, and the other they just were exposed to a little, and the third one was none. And there was, in the colony where they did use that particular pesticide, they were dead. They were gone. So yeah, that study did show a definite link. But
that's MIT. I mean, that's as good as you're going to get.
So I agree with you. That particular pesticide, there's a good argument for not using it. At least not using it near where we have bees, and they should be a lot more careful. It should be studied more carefully.
I mean,
I don't think that's
bees everywhere. So
bees everywhere. You just need to go back to old farming techniques. Like, I mean, they still use manure on a lot of farms. Don't get me wrong.
Vertical farms. We need vertical farms.
We just need to be smarter about how we do things. I'm not saying that we need to completely ban stuff, but we can't lose the bees, because if we lose the bees, we're humped.
Yeah, but well, we're not that one thing. That's a contributing factor. Now, just a British beekeeper site, for instance, where what they talk about is maintaining your bee colony, and if you do a good job of taking care of your bee colony during winter, they'll survive better.
Oh yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And climate change. Climate change means, in some places, longer, more severe winters. You got to pay more attention to your bee colony. So I suspect the biggest thing is climate change creating problems for beekeepers, and some beekeepers are not doing an adequate job of feeding their colonies during winter.
I'm sure that's the case, but we have a known issue that does affect the bees. Let's eliminate it for a time.
Yeah, I know.
It happens.
It's a factor. It's a factor. I agree with you.
No, it's doing something. Let's not do it. If you know doing donuts burns out your tires, and you want to save your tires, let's not do burnouts anymore. I don't know. But anyway, we're having the opposite of what California and the West Coast is. We're in a deluge now, and it's been a pretty wet spring. And this is the second year we've had really wet spring here.
You know, that there was a study that I skipped over about how dangerous storms like typhoons and hurricanes are moving further away from the equator. So the further away from the equator that you are, you're now more likely to get more severe hurricanes and typhoons.
I mean, this rainy weather just ruins fruit. It dilutes the sugar content, and it makes for some horrible tasting peaches. I mean, yeah, the peaches are huge, but they taste terrible.
Well, that's because you don't have the right genetically modified crop.
Oh, that's true. I might be coming around on that. They haven't said it's completely bad for you, but I just have a problem when they put pesticides into the food that you're eating. I don't, if it's going to kill the bees and the stuff that eat off of it, or the pests that eat it, and it kills them, why would you want to eat that? Because that hasn't been tested quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this tobacco thing, they were using juveniles, minors, to farm tobacco. Well, they're getting pesticides in their bloodstream and nicotine illness. They're throwing up in the fields because they're cutting tobacco with, they're exposed to it.
Genetically modified crops to resist pests and diseases is the way to go, as opposed to genetically modifying the crop to resist the pesticide itself, which is what they're doing most of the time here. It's what Monsanto is trying to develop.
No, it's backfiring every time you do something. Like they've made these crops that are resistant to Roundup, but now there's these weeds in the southeast here that are resistant to Roundup because they've oversprayed, and the nature will modify itself to and so they've got these weeds that they got nothing that'll kill it, and they're growing up in the crops.
There are some pesticides I'm absolutely sure are completely safe.
Agent Orange.
But we certainly need, we're back to that old stupid funding issue, is we need better ways of testing these different pesticides. Our regulatory agencies don't have the staff to be able to do all the studies they're supposed to. In the case of, is it the FDA? They don't rely on their own studies. They can't afford to do their own studies. So it's Monsanto, the corporations, that do the study, and then they peer review it. Now it works pretty well, but it's not the ideal system you want.
Oh well. I feel like we've complained about this for a while, and there's nothing we can do about it.
What else you want to fight about?
Well, I want more people to get active. I want them to write their congressman. Really, write your congressman. That's all I can tell you. Senators, congressmen. The president doesn't do no good. Just write your congressman. Tell them more funding for science. More STEM education.
What about this net neutrality business? Where the FCC is trying to create new sets of rules?
I used to, and I could tell that my cable speed and the access has slowed down a lot since they ruled that you can pay to play. So whoever has the most money can get the most internet speed.
I've seen that happen on my end too. Like, my internet was working fine when that ruling came out initially, like the first ruling about it being neutral, and then as soon as they swapped it, went down to shit.
Yeah, like stuff that I used to be able to, like watching movies, streaming has slowed down.
Yep.
And Netflix was bad until they paid, but it's still not as good as it used to be. I mean, it's horrible. I think it's a bad idea. I mean, it's another strike against regular people.
Comcast is going to implement caps, and they're gonna the more bandwidth you use, the more they're gonna charge you.
I mean, it's dirty. It really is. It's just downright dirty. If you're not rich, then you're fucked in this country.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway,
right.
Write your senator and congressman. That's all I can tell you to do. I don't know if it'll do any good, but it's better than sitting around.
It can. In some cases, it can. But this is going to be a tough election here in the United States.
We need to make another SOPA shitstorm. Otherwise, that's not going to get done.
Yeah, Google needs to drop the bomb on it, like they did with what was that thing they dropped the bomb on? Oh, the NSA. Yeah.
That works. That kind of outpouring certainly works. But it's hard to get that many people motivated.
I mean, it really is. And, you know, I've got people just disillusioned. And it's hard for me to convince them that, yeah, still write your congressman. What's that going to do? I'm one person. I'm thinking, not if enough people do it, but...
Oh, yeah.
It only works when everybody does it. But nobody wants to do it because nobody does it.
Yeah, nobody does it.
I gotta
The only
send
thing
an
that'll
invite.
the only thing that'll change is civil unrest.
Yeah.
It happened in the 60s, and that was about it.
Okay.
At least.
Jani is telling me that Justin wants to come in. I have posted Justin Jackson an invite. That'll wake you up.
But doesn't he have to start TWIS in like a...
Yeah, like 5 minutes, doesn't he?
I'm just gonna pop in if, in fact, he does come in. Let's see. Oh my God, I got 97 tabs open.
It's complication. And this is another thing, climate change. I mean, we use fossil fuels, and we got like 300 dead. And
Hey, what do you know? It's Justin.
Turkey, just for mining coal, 300 dead. We had 2 here last week in West Virginia.
Justin, are you late for TWIS?
Civil, yeah, I am just about almost there. Civil unrest has never fixed anything. What we need is uncivil unrest. Uncivil unrest is the only way to get anything done.
I totally agree with that.
And the problem is, by the way.
So I misspoke. Maybe I should say riots. That's what I need to say. We need more riots in this
We need
nation.
people to grab the axe handles out of the trunks of their cars.
Just the handles?
Just.
That is exactly right. I mean, I'm going to go back to the whole civil rights movement, and you know, you had people marching and nobody paid any attention until you had riots.
Yeah,
until parts of cities started burning.
Senator Al Franken is right. Net neutrality is the free speech movement of today.
Yeah, no, it's going to be, and it's going to be hugely. It's going to hugely impact TWIS, for instance.
Yeah.
Right? Let alone my addiction to Netflix. You know, it's going to be pay to play. I think possibly a large element of it could backfire. I think you could find, backfire. Maybe it's intentionally. Maybe it's intentional leverage that they're creating. But you could actually see potentially something like a Microsoft, something like a Netflix going and buying out a Comcast, right? You may find companies who are sensitive to streaming data saying, you know what, we'll just buy you. We'll just take over. We'll compete with you in providing data.
That's fine.
Google's doing Google Fiber. They're making their own ISP right now.
But what you've done with that is you've created a monopoly and not a competitive society, and that's exactly what happened with the railroads when they.
Oh, stop!
And this is what exactly happened in the 1900s when they busted up Standard Oil.
Open your eyes, Ulysses. There's no such thing as no monopolies right now. It's all monopolies.
It's all monopolies.
And that's why I'm saying part of this could be intentional. Like part of this could be Comcast setting up a forced purchase. Like if you want to do business, you're going to have to monopolize and gobble me up for whatever some.
Are you trying to get Ulysses to pay attention by putting a train in front of him?
That's how that's my model train, which was good for arc welding other toys.
Yeah.
Basically, you take a couple of wires off the metal track, and you melt down your plastic army men. You gave them bullet holes, but
if you're Comcast, you're big enough to force Netflix to buy bandwidth, then nobody else smaller than Netflix can afford to compete with Netflix. So you've created a monopoly, is what I'm saying. And this is the same thing that happened with Standard Oil, Vanderbilt. I mean, you're going to have to break it up. And the funny thing is, the Justice Department has seemingly lost its sense of history in this nation, along with, well, all the Republicans in Congress, because they don't know what history is. So that's my 2 cents.
I mean, we can see that directly in this group. We were talking about it early. I pay $67 a month for high bandwidth, and I'm getting 102 MIPS or whatever the heck you call it down. Patrick is getting what, 25, 30, something, 25,
20. More like 16.
Yeah, I'm like Patrick. I'm paying $60-some a month to get Patrick speed. So,
man, that's ridiculous. What a difference.
Well, I mean, Cox Cable is not Comcast. Comcast is the biggest player in the game.
So realistically, then what you're telling me with my Comcast, it's not actually the download speeds. I could care less about download speeds.
I want good upload speeds.
Exactly. That's what we need for actually broadcasting this and getting stuff up onto the web, right? So that's my concern, is that they'll mess with that. But if I'm paying the same thing for more with Comcast, when Comcast reduces me, I might be reduced to Cox Cable, but maybe not much worse than that. And then think about it this way too. Then how does that open up the possibility for saying, okay, so net neutrality is done, but my startup provider, call it AT&T, right? Or Cox Cable isn't going to threshold you, right? Now there's an incentive to go with that company versus the other.
AT&T is going to limit you on your bandwidth.
No, I know AT&T will, Comcast will, but maybe Cox Cable won't. Maybe Cox Cable, if they're in an environment to compete with somebody else, will say, okay, we're not going to limit you. And so then who's going to use Comcast?
It's not necessarily that they limit your entire bandwidth. It's that they do packet shaping, which is only limiting certain types of bandwidth, like streaming video and stuff like this.
And it won't necessarily, now maybe I have this wrong, but it won't necessarily be that they're charging the end consumer directly. What they would be doing is charging, say, Netflix for the amount of bandwidth that Netflix requires. And then Netflix, of course, has to raise its prices universally to compensate for that. But it wouldn't necessarily be direct, you've got to pay for better access than the next guy. It's that the price of Netflix will triple.
Well, they also...
It is that now with Comcast and Netflix. Netflix is paying more for their bandwidth, but it could be both.
Say, like, Comcast doesn't like YouTube videos that much, so they're going to control the type of media you can see now. I mean,
Justin, when we're talking about TWIS, so you have to have good bandwidth for your connection. Then you have Blair. Blair needs good bandwidth for her connection. And then you have Kirsten. Now, you're all kind of living in the same area, but you could also have be on different systems. So you need to have the same speeds for all three of you for TWIS to work properly.
And the thing is, it's not like a telephone system where you can buy from a different provider. You're stuck with whoever provider's in your area. You know, which I don't understand how they can not see it as not a monopoly.
No. I think I have two choices.
I don't.
You can have the internet or you can't.
Yeah.
Those are the two choices.
Those are my two choices. I can use AT&T or I can not have internet access.
Internet access. And they said, well, you can use your cell phone provider because that provides data, but at a very expensive rate.
Oh, cell
phone.
At
like 1,000% inflated.
Yeah,
and so there's satellite, but of course that has no upload.
That was what the Supreme Court was arguing. They're like, well, you can get it from your cell phone. That's not a monopoly now.
They've never used their cell phone to get
Which
data.
is bullshit. Yeah, well, even if they did, they've got enough money.
I want to see a law that says all internet traffic has to be symmetrical. Your download speed has to be the same as your upload speed, and vice versa.
Yes.
None of this download at 100 meg per second and upload at 1/2 meg per second.
Oh.
Yeah, because they don't give me the option to do the fast upload with the just mediocre download. Because I don't need nearly the amount of download that I don't actually even believe I'm getting that.
You're not.
I have nothing. I'm not doing, global information system work at home where I'm trying to bring down that much data to my computer. I just don't. So my upload, if there was a high upload that was just mediocre download, it'd be fine.
Oh yeah, I'm getting 102 down, but I'm only getting 11.78 up.
That's not bad.
Almost.
That's a really good plan, actually.
That's actually really good.
I mean, next to Google Fiber, that's a really good plan.
Yeah.
Google Fiber is a gig symmetrical.
Wow.
For $70 a month.
Dang.
You have to live in Austin or Kansas City.
So I do also have the luxury of living in California, which, being a very wired up state, at least close to the nexus where all this stuff is more important than food or water. There actually would be, and may be rioting that takes place in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco when this starts to come into play. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't apply here. Now, the law, it will be the law universally, but I wouldn't be surprised if providers were scared to implement here. That wouldn't surprise me. That you wouldn't see it implemented evenly across the United States. And especially, if AT&T is your only option, you're almost guaranteed you're going to get implemented, right? If Cox Cable is your only option, pretty much guaranteed it's going to get implemented. So then it does all these monopoly laws. I mean, shoot, you used to not be able to own the radio station and the newspaper in the same town, just because that was too much of a monopoly on the information that was going in. So if you're the only access to all of the medias that we consume, that has to be definable as a monopoly.
Yeah, but it's not. You have the internet. You have newspaper. You have TV.
Oh yeah.
You have and you got your cell phone plans now. So there's no reason that
I don't remember what the exact monopoly rules were.
Well,
I worked for a company, Pitney Bowes, that was the only company in the United States that made postage meters at one time. They had to literally pay to keep a competitor going, so they didn't have 100%. So there's a percentage in there when they so-called look at these monopoly rules. And now, I don't have a choice. It's Comcast. That's it.
Yeah, I
don't have a choice. That's a monopoly. That is not a monopoly.
Network, which doesn't work when it rains. You have satellite TV, which doesn't work when it rains, or severe thunderstorm, or you have a cable, and that's your only and your cell phone data. That's the only choices you have. So, and what's bad is it's the cable companies. They don't share the same cable lines, even though it's the same cable lines that Patrick's using and I'm using and Justin's using.
Well, you know what we would have to do for Science Island, you got to have somebody, maybe Patrick or somebody like that, who can go in and kind of hijack, if you will, build our own little system.
We'll just have
hijack or something.
Building an intranet is relatively easy. It's hooking it up to the internet that's the hard part.
Yeah, we can make our own hard.
See, all of these. Ulysses keeps saying that everybody has the same cable lines, but it's different companies, and that's not entirely accurate. So there's tiering partnerships between each major company, and it's really only like a handful of people that actually make these tiering partnerships that basically say, yeah, you can use this, you can use our network to do this, and you can use this network to do this. Just let's give each other like $10 million a year or something, and that's how everything's interconnected. And then there's like level 3 and stuff, and they're like the big player in like who has what bandwidth to connect it to what. Every company has their own lines up to a point, and then they have to negotiate terms between them. But I mean, there are like in cell phone carriers, like Sprint has a sub-carrier of Virgin Mobile and Ting, and there are some cable companies that have the same type of deal. Like I know, like DSL Extreme, I think, is a sub-carrier to like AT&T's network or something like this.
But like,
yeah, and part of that whole telecommunications thing with the cell phones is they were in a mad race to put up towers everywhere. You know, so Sprint, if you're roaming on Sprint, you're on the Verizon network because they put up towers in between where people thought to put up towers in the first place. So in Sprint, whenever you're roaming, you're actually on a Verizon tower. So they're all sort of sharing, right? The equipment, the infrastructure, and so profiting from it, and they've got a good working relationship. It's sort of monopolizing. Then it's just about then it's like, what's the portal through which you buy something, right? Did you buy it from that factory in China through Amazon.com, or did you buy it from that same China factory by getting it on eBay, or by getting it on FantasticSuperDeal.com? Like, does it really matter at that point who you've signed up with? You're using the same product.
I said tiering. I meant peering. It's a peering relationship. They're peers.
How difficult is it to create your own hotspot, Wi-Fi hotspot?
I can do it. You can do it with any computer or cell phone.
yeah,
Would
but
the problem be speed compared to what I can get through Comcast?
That's not the same thing at all. I mean, if you have a cell phone plan with like LTE compared to 3G compared to 2G or WiMAX or whatever, then you have different bandwidths. But that's just in the technology, not necessarily in how much they're allowing you to use.
Well, I got my iPad, so I'm in my house. I'm going through my Comcast Wi-Fi. I go to a mall or something. Now I'm no longer connected to Comcast. I'm connected to whatever tower feeds the signal to the mall, right?
Does your iPad have a cell antenna in it, or is it just Wi-Fi?
I think it's Wi-Fi only.
Well, then it's just
Not sure.
it's whatever cable line that the mall has.
Link your phone into a Wi-Fi, but then you're going to burn through your cell phone data.
Right.
It goes fast.
Wait a sec. Who pays cell phone data?
You do.
You have a pay-as-you-go data plan?
Not pay as you go, but you have a certain.
I have pay-as-you-go. I'm on Ting.
We've got like.
Wait. Who do you guys use?
I use Ting.
Verizon.
Oh, weird. So Sprint, you have to maybe pay a little bit more for the plan, whatever, but it's unlimited data.
Yeah, they stopped doing it unlimited. Verizon stopped that when we signed up. So we only have like, I don't know.
No, Sprint's still unlimited.
They still got unlimited?
Yeah.
I want to switch.
Well, what Sprint does...
This is turning into a Sprint commercial really quickly. But here's
no. So what Sprint and T-Mobile do, they have unlimited data if you get the right plan or whatever. But what they actually do is, and it was the same with a Virgin wireless, mobile, whatever. they say in their agreement that you have unlimited, you have max, like the max speed you can get on the carrier up to a certain point of data usage. Once you go past that, they crunch it down to a slower data rate, but you can still have unlimited data. There's no cap.
I think AT&T does that. AT&T does the threshold. They throttle you at some point. Sprint doesn't do that. But the key point of it is they're not throttling you because you're using up too much bandwidth. Because it really doesn't matter how much you're knocking down or up. It doesn't affect the system. What it is it's the number of people who are connected to it is what slows it down or what prevents them from adding users. So really, if you're a constant data user, they want you to use your phone a little less. That's why they throttle you, to make you think, oh, maybe they'll go and use a computer or something else. Because it's the number of phones connected at any given time that creates bottlenecks, not how much data is actually flowing through.
It's just like a superhighway, right? Like in LA, they've got like 8 lanes across the thing. If all the lanes are filled with and cars packed bumper to bumper, then it's going to start slowing to a crawl. It's the same way with whatever internet server you're using.
Well, I can solve that by limiting how much data you can use.
I got to roll. I got some last-minute TWIS prep to do. New plan for Science Island, though, Ed. What do you think of this? I can get us. I think it's 160 acres for like 10 grand.
10 grand. Okay.
California's out. California's out.
The only in California. California.
This place is on fire right now.
No, that's Southern California. That's the dry part.
Everywhere.
I'm talking about the wet, snowy Sierras. There's only one caveat.
Sierras.
Yeah, only one caveat is we have to focus a certain amount of our time prospecting for super remnants.
For what?
Wait, for what remnants?
Supernova remnants. The leftover remnants of supernovas. I'm talking about gold! A gold claim for land management. It's like, it'll cost us like, $800 a year to maintain. We can build structures out there. We can be off the grid, right?
That's a rental. That's a yearly rental.
Yeah, that's a
yearly rent. No, yearly rental is about $800.
Oh.
Probably none of it's flat whatsoever.
Oh, it's at varying degrees, different parts of land. There's hills, there's slopes.
So what if it's
but
a
those
rental?
are good because you find better remnants there.
If it's a rental, what's with the 10 grand?
Because you have to buy somebody. Everybody's bought all the claims, and they're trying to unload them, but you can get like 160 acres for like 10 grand. I mean, they're not asking the moon and stars for
10 grand a year?
No. To buy the claim, to maintain it yearly with the Bureau of Land Management, it's like, let's see, a 60-acre claim is like $500, something like that. It's 10
grand down and 800 a year.
So you want to climb Bundy this place?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood.
You want to climb Bundy this place?
How tall are these Sierras we're talking about?
Sierras go all the way up. There used to be there was volcanoes from the plate tectonics pushed it way up like 8,000 feet or something like that. I don't know. And then there was a giant glacier, and it moved, and so that's why there's gold in them Dyer hills.
That's how high I was in Bhutan. So that's not bad.
But yeah, but there's still gold to be found up there, and we could be financing the private property Science Island, or perhaps we find no gold, but have spent a good amount of time learning how to live off the grid, because you're allowed to improve it to an extent. I don't think you can make.
Well, that's a big word, to an extent.
There's caveats and conditions, and you have to check the Bureau of Land Management. But you are allowed to improve the property. You're allowed to live there. You're allowed to build shelter there.
Do you get title to it? Do you get title to it, or is it Bureau of Land Management?
Bureau of Land Management owns the land. This is national land.
And this is good, but when they decide that they don't want you on there anymore, they Clive Bundy you. So you've got.
It's not quite that, because that's land that That's land that he didn't pay. Those are different rights to that land. That's
Yeah, Clyde Bundy didn't pay the $800 a year. That's why he's getting
for like 100 years.
Well, they changed the law saying you can't. They told him you could be on it. Period. They said there's a frog that's endangered, so you can't be there anymore.
If there's an endangered animal on our property, we may have to find a different claim.
Or kill it off the page.
Or kill it before anybody knows it's
Kill
there.
it before anybody figures out it's there.
Hey, no. We are Science Island.
Or
Totally
be the
cool
stewards.
moving.
We could be the stewards
Yeah,
and monitor and study. And then
I am 90% confident that the BLM does not allow permanent structures on their land.
No, but you are allowed to have shelters there.
Doesn't have to be permanent. All those tiny homes with little wheels on them. That's how they get around the
We're
property
talking
laws.
about slopes. We would have to carve out the slopes. So that
Yeah, well, that could happen while dredging and with the earth mover and the excavator. I gotta go though. I gotta go.
Okay.
All right. I can fund this.
Oh,
I have a funny feeling that wouldn't work out so well.
I think we should buy it outright.
yeah. And preferably
But it'd be a good way to raise money.
and not in California. They've got gold here in Virginia too. Don't let them fool you. You want to go to North Carolina where the Cherokee were forced off their lands for gold and still mine it, because you know what they were, and then the mining rush of the 1849 happened, and they forgot all about the gold here. It's still here. It's still in North Georgia and South Carolina or in North Carolina. It's still here.
I can try and I mean we can probably go online and look at property that's on sale by the Bureau of Land Management. But I'm going to take a wild guess and say if there's any property that's really, really good for development, it's probably already been taken.
I would say so.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, we're not looking for property that we can put a retail establishment, strip mall or something on.
You
We
know,
don't really care if it's in a great scenic viewpoint or anything.
I don't know if you guys care or not, but there's plenty of land around this power plant that I know that's not been developed. And there's for sale signs all over the place.
Oh, heck, I'm sure we can get some cheap land in Chernobyl. Let's go to
We're
Chernobyl.
talking about here in America. Lake Anna is a beautiful lake, man-made, just for one power plant. Plenty of real estate all
I'm
along
not a
the
fan of
coast.
man-made lakes.
It's, just to cool the reactors. It's just built to cool the reactors, so you don't have a cooling tower. It's just a wonderful place. The water's warm. Fishing's great. Just saying, land here on the East Coast where they don't have forest fires every year. Not to the extent of California forest fires or earthquakes. You only had that one, and that was 3 years ago.
I don't know. I'd like to be in snow-capped mountain area. I want to live at the base of a mountain. Is what I want to do. I decided this when I was in Bhutan. I want to live in a mountain valley.
That's fine until you got to graze a lot of. I hate mowing on a hill. That just sucks. Mowing grass on
You need room. You need enough space. I don't know, 150 acres maybe. Enough space for the farms. Enough space for if you're going to raise any crops. Enough space for your solar farm. Enough space for a lab. So it's really a space.
First off, there will be no solar farm. You'll put them on your frickin' roof.
I want excess power. I want a lot more power than I need.
Okay, each structure will have solar panels on top of it. Okay.
All
I
right.
wouldn't mind solar field.
But you're going to need structures.
Solar field. You
Still
gotta
need
have a
space.
solar field to power our water treatment plant.
And you also have to have an environment where you can, well, I guess any environment practically, where you can grow crops and raise some kinds of animals.
Yanni wants us to buy an old sea fort.
That's the absolute.
Yanni has
I don't know.
Yanni has
Where are the crops? I don't. Well, I guess you could have crops up on top of the thing.
not enough to sustain 100 people.
I hope it's a floating sea rig,
No, those are anchored.
because if you get into some hurricanes and things,
Oh my God, Yanni. I'd be afraid a hurricane come and flood you out, drown you.
oh well. I am going to end the broadcast. We're approaching 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I want to see
I
TWIS.
think we're about all ready to go. Hope to see you guys next week when we'll be perhaps more awake. Perhaps we can get some good, interesting, controversial stories, perhaps. I don't know.
Net neutrality is not controversial.
Well, we got that at the end.
It's not from our vantage point.
Yeah, we all don't like it.
No.